sampling techniques in here, but you might be. Again, we had to, this past, last class, we had to do different sampling techniques because of the virus. So, and unfortunately, made it a little difficult to be as unbiased and random as we could. But a little bit definitions, a little more definitions today, and then hopefully we'll get through it. But there are 5 types of sampling techniques, and we're going to go through each one of these 5 types of sampling techniques. There is random sample, systematic sample, stratified sample, cluster, and convenience. Random, systematic, stratified, cluster, convenience. Okay. Now, I will be honest with you. These probably get to me a little bit confused as much as they might get you a little bit confused. I have to like really think about it. Same with the nominal, ordinal stuff that we just did. I have to kind of give myself little tricks to remember. And but when I give it to you on a quiz, I hope you saw that on this quiz. I'm pretty straightforward. I pretty much give ones that I was like, oh yeah, small, medium, large. I know what that one is. You know, like I'll give it to you very that you won't have to second guess. Is all I'm saying. On the homework, you might second guess yourself, and if you get it wrong, that's okay. I promise you on the quiz, it'll be much more straightforward. So let's talk about each one of these. That's all we're doing today. Um, Random sample is what you want, okay? All members of the population have an equal chance of being selected. All members have an equal chance of being selected. You're not being specific, you're not being biased, you're randomly selecting, you know, males, females, blacks, whites, you know, Latinos. You're randomly selecting all different age groups, all different political parties. It's all that to say you want to be as random as can be. There are things that they use to be random. Your calculator, funny thing, has a random integer function, but surprisingly enough, if you do the random integer and like let's say Will does it and then Luke does it, it actually starts generating the same numbers for Will and Luke if they both never used it before. It's quite comical. So I'm like, how is this random? It's not. They use things like this random number table, and you can like pick 30 names and randomly assign them a number kind of thing. It's for a committee. You just do like these random, like randomly assigning. They just generate random numbers, and they happen all the time. And it's just to be as random as you can be. So that's just some examples there. Random sample. Generating a list of 30 names for a committee from random numbers. There's actually one that I can actually understand. So random, I usually understand when it says random, and systematic, I can understand, which is the next one. Systematic is a sample obtained from selecting every case member of the population. And they will specifically say that in the example. So here's an example. You don't have to write this whole thing down, but this is what they'll say. The company's statistician wants to see if machines are filling up properly at the bottle factory. So he goes to the end of the bottling line and selects every 20th bottle and removes it for testing. That is what we call a systematic way of selecting a sample. You're going to choose every 5th person. You're going to choose every 3rd car that goes through the traffic light. You're going to choose every 20th bottle. This is a systematic way of doing it. And so they'll use that phrase. Look for that phrase. Every sample is obtained by dividing the population into subgroups or strata according to some characteristic that's relevant to the study. Then the subjects are selected from each subgroup. So I put another little dot here just to help you out. It's usually 2 or more groups of similar characteristics. So it's usually like male, female, and then they'll then take people from, they'll take a certain random number from the males and certain random numbers from the females. Or they'll separate you into ages, and then they'll randomly take people. So, 0 to 18-year-olds, 19 to 25-year-olds, and then they'll take like 5 people from the 0 to 18, 5 people from the 19 to 35, whatever I just said, etc. So here's 2 examples of a stratified sampling process. You're going to test a product. The opinions are going to be gathered for 18 to 30-year-olds, 31 to 45-year-olds, and then you're going to pick 10 from those groups. So you have these layers, these stratas, these groups of 2 or more, and then from those groups, you're actually picking more randomly people. You're not choosing all of them. You're picking like another 5 within the 18 to 30-year-olds, and then 5 within the 31 to 45-year-olds. See, it says, and then pick 10 from there. Or let's say they did a survey on the political party race, and they randomly picked 10 people from the Hispanics, 10 people from the Caucasians, 10 people from the, again, those are all layers. Those are all layers of different, they have all a characteristic, all similar, all the Hispanics, all the Caucasians, all the African Americans, okay? But then through that, they then take 10 from there. Can you see that? Or I know it's hard because even me, I have to really break it down when we do an example. But they've got to have some characteristic in common, and then you pick a subgroup. That's important. You pick a subgroup from these groups. You pick a group from the group. That's a stratified for you, okay? So a cluster, notice what I've highlighted and underlined. A cluster is dividing the population into sections or clusters, and then selecting 1 or more clusters and using all the members in the cluster as members of the sample. So let me say that again, write that down. Dividing the population into these little groups, into these sections, but you're using all the members in the cluster. And they will say, they need to say that phrase, all the members in that cluster. Okay, it's not based on a characteristic. Yes, Alexa.
The cluster, like how they organize it, that randomness?
Yes, that, well, not necessarily. Cluster could be like counties in North Carolina. Okay, that's not random. But then what I would do as the statistician, I would take all the members of Union County. I literally have to go to all the members of Union County. Okay, that's a very large population, but I'm just saying, I'm just trying to think of something right there. So picking random sample from all the zip codes, here's another one, in North Carolina, okay? So there's obviously different zip codes. Those are clusters, okay? They don't have a similar characteristic besides just living in the same zip code, okay? That's why I don't really like that phrase, but it's this right here. It's this all phrase that I usually look for. Cluster usually has that word all within it, okay? Just trying to help you out here to remember it. Again, you'll get a note card to write it down, so it'll be good news. Random stratified, random systematic stratified cluster, and there's one more. No, people. Okay. Do you like me? There's just so convenient to that, right? Convenient. All right, now we're going to try to identify the sample, and then you're going to have that job for homework tonight, and that's it. And this part it can be hard. This is the hard part, and I want you to think about it. What I would like you to do when I throw up, there's 4 of them. I want you to go through the ones that you know for sure. Okay. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to make even the quiz even easier. I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to let you know anyway. Okay. There's 5 samples. I will only do 5. Like I won't put 2 that are cluster and 2 that are like I'll put 1 cluster, 1 stratified. I know that's pretty bad, right? I know. How dare I? You don't want me to do that? You don't want to do that? Okay. All right, so I want you to look through all this right now, identify the samples, the last thing we're going to do, and there we go. Tell me what you think you know which one right now. I'll give you a minute to read them, if you can, and then we'll go talk through them. Every fifth person is selected at a movie theater to try a new flavor of popcorn. Hey, shh, don't think about it. A group of female college students are asked about their safety on campus using random numbers. From a large city, nurses are divided into 4 groups, male or female, and according to their LPN or RN certification. 10 from those groups, listen to what I'm saying, are selected to determine their continued education requirements. And then last but not least, for 15 minutes, all customers from a selected Walmart store on a specific day are asked about how many miles from the store they live. Okay, so let's just go through. I think you already could figure these out, but hopefully you saw those keywords that I was trying to help you out with. Okay, so this first one, every 5th person. You're brilliant. Systematic. Okay, that's the key they're going to use. Systematic. Oops, ran out of room there. Okay. Group of female college students are asked about their safety on campus using random numbers because they're generating a randomness to it and using random numbers, okay? Even though it's this group of female students, they're not necessarily doing male students either, okay? So we're not dividing into groups, other groups besides the female. This would be considered random. From a large city, nurses are divided into 4 groups, okay? So let's think about that. You've got nurses into 4 groups, and then from those groups, you're choosing 10. You're gonna pick 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, and 10 here. Would you consider that cluster, or would you consider that stratified? Correct, okay? So that is the difference, stratified, as opposed to cluster, which this one, for 15 minutes, all the customers from selected Walmart store on a specific day are asked about how many miles from the store they live. We've gone into debate on this one, and I kind of gave it to the students. What do you think this one would be? I think Will said, did you say this one? Maybe you didn't. Cluster, but then I had other people kind of fight me on, isn't that convenient because you're at your Walmart? And I'm like, I don't agree with that. The thing is, they use that word all, so the book says cluster, but I wouldn't fight you on that. I would probably say convenient also. So I'm going to go with C or C. But if it was cluster, the word that gives it away usually is the word all, the fact that you're doing it all, because Walmarts, aren't there a lot of different Walmarts, right? So they've already been clustered. So you being at a specific Walmart and specifically, I don't know how you're doing this, but you're getting all the customers to answer your survey, then they're considering that a cluster. That's what the book is. But I would go with also convenient only because they fought me on it last year, and I was like, fine, whatever. All right, that's it. So your homework tonight is 1 through 17, I think I gave you.
16.
Really, Will?
Yep, just 1 through 16.
Man, oh man. All right. You can get that done on page 17. I knew there was a 17 in here. You weren't lying to me, Will. Page 17, 1 through 16. You have a whopping 30 minutes to do these wonderful 16 problems. Oh, Jen is under. Can you handle this? I know this is hard for you. No, I know the tears are breaking. I had to shut that, y'all. I'm sorry, because I don't want you to see Jenna. Admit her.